Bank of America had their first branch, San Bernardino branch, in our building.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Empire Podcast interviews. We like to interview everyone from pastors to actors, rappers to trappers, and everybody in between. Yes, my name is Antonio the Miles, the host. And yes, of course, we have another great guest today. But before we get into it, you know the thing, blah, 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 blah. That means like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to build it up, comment. But yeah, like I said, we have a great guest today. And he is the creative director of the Downtown Historic Building Enterprise. And that gentleman is Ryan Stanley. Welcome to the podcast, Ryan.
Thank you, Antonio.
How you doing today, man?
Have a pretty long day, but I'm excited to be on the podcast here. Always good to talk with another filmmaker.
Oh, man, definitely. You know, we about that film life. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Long day, you said, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. What time were you up today?
My last meeting ended at 3 a.m.
This morning?
And then my first daytime meeting was at 9 a.m.
Gotcha.
So, you know, life of an entrepreneur over here.
Gotcha. Just moving. Gotcha. So basically, lack of sleep is the entrepreneurial life, right?
Sometimes rest is definitely important, but big week in terms of downtown and our building progress. So
I like that. We'll definitely get into that. You talk about film, right? So, you know, who's your favorite director? Top three. Give us your top three.
Ooh. Well,
he wasn't ready for it, folks.
I was not ready for it. People usually just say the top one. I do like Damien Chazelle.
Okay.
That La La Land crowd.
You like him? The guy who did Whiplash?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whiplash. Wes Anderson.
Okay.
I like his style.
Okay. He's got a really cool cinematography style. Wes Anderson is a gem. People weren't ready for that one.
No.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm blanking right now.
Got you. One more.
Let me see. Spielberg does some good stuff. I like his projects.
He's got you can't go wrong with Spielberg. Now, okay. He mentioned film, so now I got to get him, folks. So I'm assuming that the directors, your top three directors, are not the same as your top three writers.
Ooh.
Right? Am I correct?
Who's
your top three writers for film? We're getting him, folks. He wasn't ready.
I was not ready.
He was not ready.
I forget his name. Oh, gosh.
What did he write?
He wrote Eternal Sunshine.
Of the Spotless Mind? Oh.
He has a long name. And then Guillermo del Toro.
Okay.
He's a great writer.
You like his writing style? Okay. Did he write Pan's Labyrinth? Okay.
He's a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
And
we got him, folks. We got him.
Ryan Coogler.
Okay. His go-to actor is Michael B. Jordan.
All right, yeah, Michael B. Jordan.
Right? That's his guy. He puts him in his movies, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Kind of like oh God. Jeez, I totally blanked on the actor that is always used. Like how Tim Burton always uses like Johnny Depp or something like that. You know what I mean? Stuff like
the favorite.
You know, like I feel like or like how Quentin Tarantino always uses Samuel L. Jackson. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like directors have like their thing. I know he didn't ask me, but Quentin Tarantino is one of my favorite writer directors. But it's not about me; it's about him. So you know, Ryan. We definitely want to talk to you more about being a creative director, but I have one more question about film, right? What does film and filmmaking mean to you?
Well, wow, good question. For me, it's not just film. I love entertainment. My purpose, I feel, is to entertain and I carry that ever since I was little into every aspect that I would do, from having my own cartoon studio to making stop motion shorts, doing skits and stage productions and music, and I know this addition to film, but just being able to express yourself in a medium that other people can watch and enjoy, and you can just release something into the world and it's theirs.
I love it. I love it. So Ryan, for people who don't know who you are, can you please tell us, all of us, who you are and what you do?
So I am Ryan Stanley, the creative director of the historic Enterprise Building in downtown San Bernardino. For any older folks, the old Andresen Building.
Gotcha. Let them know right there.
Oh, the old Andresen Building.
Yeah.
Historic 1927 office tower, modern classical architecture, beautiful place. And my job as creative director is figure out how to implement retail dining, entertainment, and experiences, unique experiences, while being inspired by the history and the legacy of the building and the city that came about from the site of our building too. A lot of more history things, and really our branding as a company and a building, and making sure that from the community's perspective, we're not that old abandoned building from downtown. We're a beacon for hope and revitalization efforts.
I love that. So basically, like the whole idea is to revitalize, to be a beacon of hope, to make the Enterprise Building, which is located in downtown San Bernardino, a happening spot for people to come and to make San Bernardino a thriving place again. Right?
So if you take the historic Enterprise Building word for word, what that means, well, real quick, the difference between historical and historic. I like to share this with people.
Please.
Historical means old. Historic means important. So when you hear somebody say it's a historical building, it's not really important, it's just old. But when you say a historic building, it has significance to a community, to just the general history of the city, or history of the city. And for our building, the Historic Enterprise Building definition is an important place in history that undertakes the building and development of businesses. Simple.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
I still wanting to bring about the change and turn the tale of old San Bernardino that's abandoned and downtown isn't a happening place. Because when you look back in the history and when our building was built, and even still to today, we're the only historic office tower in the Inland Empire and county of San Bernardino.
Wow.
So this San Bernardino was the happening place. It was one of the, like when you think of Pasadena, LA, San Bernardino was one of those places before Riverside even was considered cool.
Facts.
Not to hate on Riverside. Riverside's doing great things.
Yeah.
But
It's just the truth.
yeah, historically, this is the site of our building is where the Inland Empire started. I can go more into that.
No, yeah, please. Like, tell us. I didn't know that this is the start of the Inland Empire, but yeah, tell us a little bit about
that. History lesson, guys. Listen up.
Boom. Get your books out. Time for your notes.
This is the epic of the Enterprise Building here, and it starts with Mormons. San Bernardino was a Mormon settlement for a good amount of time.
Okay.
Until I think 1851, I believe, they left to go to Utah, and the city lost its city status because its population got up and went to Utah.
Gotcha.
So it became a town, very small, very few developments, any little settlers and old gold miners that didn't leave. And in 1871, young-ish, 30-something John Andresen was coming from Arizona, a German immigrant, but also entrepreneur,
Yep.
on his way back to San Francisco after owning a successful brewery in La Paz, Arizona. Stopped in San Bernardino, loved the scenery, and had this feeling, had this vision that San Bernardino, this little town, would be the center, or not just the center, but the financial gateway to Southern California. This was 1871.
Okay.
Not even like LA and San Diego were happening places. It was just where population was centered.
Interesting.
And this whole region, inland, became, the gateway, the gate city, which people referred still to today. It wasn't, geographically, it was that, but financially, nothing. Very bare. But he had that vision, and when he shared that with the town folk, it was just one street really, they all laughed at him. And, entrepreneurs don't take no as an answer. And he said, not only will San Bernardino be the financial gateway, this intersection, and he buys this piece of land, this intersection.
Off of E Street.
Well, it was called Salt Lake then, because Mormons.
Wow.
So, where this was the outskirts of town.
Okay, interesting.
So, when you think of the county courthouse, the historic one, that's about where the 1 to 2 roads of San Bernardino, the town, were. This was the outskirts of town, also the site of the city's first brewery, which was built in 1867 and then sort of fluttered away until John Andresen bought it, and being a successful brewery owner, expanded the brewery and built a fine structure, the finest in the city. Well, finest in the town.
Yeah. People like to drink anyway.
Yeah, and after a while of doubling down in terms of investment, he financed a lot of the city's, or became the city's finest structures, and one of the finest hotels in the state was just kitty corner to our building that he helped finance. He built the largest building in the city, this hotel and office building. He built the city's post office. He was one of 4 financiers that brought the Santa Fe Railroad to San Bernardino.
Whoa.
He was...
One of 4?
Yeah, one of 4.
Jeez. He must have been balling.
Yeah, well, he was also a banker. He made the Farmers Exchange Bank for San Bernardino, which became one of the first licensed banks in the state, I believe.
Okay. Jeez.
San Bernardino really building the development there. And over time, people started to realize, wow, San Bernardino can be a place. And
sounds familiar.
At first they would say him buying this intersection would be Andresen's folly. They said
his folly.
Yeah. And they put money on him that he would fail.
Gotcha. Sound familiar, guys? Anyone heard that before? Jeez.
And by 1910, this intersection became the most sought after and valuable real estate in the city. He brought all the development to East Street, all the business and all the retail to 3rd Street. And when you look at old photos and old what are they called? Not floor plans, but permit county. Then the fire department made little permit of parcels. You can just see where the development was, and so much of it was along East Street and 3rd Street, and East Street was the main artery, north-south artery for the city, and it just expanded. And he invested in other cities too.
Okay.
And he was pretty big in Big Bear too. He helped develop Big Bear. And this brought the city to be a city status, one of those emerging Southern California places, the Gate City, because the gateway to Southern California.
Interesting. From a town to a city.
From a town to a city.
Oof.
From 1871. So in just 40 years, he made a city.
Gotcha.
And he became a county supervisor for 2 districts.
Dope.
I think he was one responsible for bringing the sewer system and horse or trolley lines and things and transportation and so much of what we relish today in terms of infrastructure was his idea.
Gotcha. And this is the same Andresen?
John Andresen.
Same person who created the Enterprise Building.
Well, the first Andresen building. However, by 1912, the city crowned him as the King of Enterprises.
Okay.
The King of Enterprises.
What do you think that means? What does that mean?
Well, if you take a little rundown, empty town to become one of the staples of the state of California in just 40 years, he practically ran the city in terms of finance and attractions, like bringing the population. It was a pretty big population for the time. And that was just in 40 years.
Yeah. Stay persistent, folks.
But he had one last dream, one last vision to demolish the brewery and the first Andresen building and build this grand monument to the people and the entrepreneurs and businesses of San Bernardino. But he passed away in 1912 and it was unable to be realized. But he had 2 sons.
Okay.
John Andresen Jr. and William, who became the forgotten one of the duo. And it took 15 years. There was a World War, and they had to sell off a whole bunch of properties to finance this building. By 1926, the original buildings were demolished.
Okay.
And they began excavation, and they had Howard E. Jones, who's a famed local architect. You would probably be more familiar with the county courthouse. He was an assistant with that. Our building, the Harris department store next door, the old Riverside City Hall.
A lot
of things that those are just the ones that still exist today. But back then, he was like the guy.
Yeah, facts.
And they made sure to spare absolutely no expense at all whatsoever in this building, because this was sort of dedicated to their father, his last vision, and even down to earthquake safety they thought of. And
Smart.
For that time, that was uncommon.
Facts.
They took a field trip out to Santa Barbara after the earthquakes and studied all the buildings to make sure that this one wouldn't fall.
Gotcha.
And they also made sure to only, for the exception of 3 things, the elevator, which was from Otis out of Los Angeles, the mail chute, which is out of Rochester, New York. They're the standard good mail chutes then. And then the marble, which was imported from Italy. Everything else in the building, down to the wiring and the labor, were all from locally sourced businesses.
Got you. Of San Bernardino.
Of San Bernardino. The steel, local. The concrete, local. The terracotta, local. The wiring, the labor, everything, except those three things, local.
Dope.
And it, along with the annex that they built just north of our building, it was the largest office building in the city with the tallest storefronts. And that bank that John Andreessen Sr. Started was later merged to become Merchants National Bank, or Merchants Bank. And that was the first bank tenant here. So when this building opened, it cost $1.5 million to build.
In 1914?
In 1927.
Wow.
In today's money, that's close to $30 million. And the largest office building, but inside, they made sure it was such an attraction, this grand monument to the city.
Yeah.
It was specifically designed to stand out. You can look at old photos. It was a modern classical architecture design, not Art Deco, and not Spanish Renaissance or Revival style. It was modern classical, and some elements inspired by the original Andreessen building.
Of course.
And it housed some of the finest banks and dentists and doctors and surgeons and lawyers and business people in this building. And for up until the 40s, it had a wait list.
Wow.
So that bank that they started merged with Bank of America. So Bank of America had their first branch, San Bernardino branch, in our building.
Amazing.
I think they had 3 other ones later, and then they built the one just downtown, their new one downtown here.
Yeah.
But in terms of historical significance, the side of our building from First Brewery, I forgot to mention, the Andreessen building that Senior built was the city's incubator in terms of business startups.
Okay, yeah, you mentioned, okay.
So one of the first startups here was the first chiropractic office in the county, and one of the first licensed one. They always emphasize that in the papers.
Okay.
First licensed,
Hilarious.
one of the first licensed ones in the state of California, right here. So much history, and it was here.
Yeah. And so basically you guys are keeping the tradition alive about making it a space for entrepreneurs and businesses, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha. So is there a certain type of businesses that you guys are allowing, or can any type of business form and function here?
Pretty much any type of business. We've had retail boutiques, nonprofits, call centers. We wanted to not be limited by the history. I would see that a lot, where everything needs to be old, and if it's not updated, it becomes a museum. And we didn't want to have an empty building.
Yeah.
And in the 70s and 80s, a lot of the interiors were updated over the years. And when we got here, our marble hallway was covered in carpet.
Interesting.
It got too loud, they said.
Okay.
And it was very 70s, old carpet everywhere. And when my family bought the building in 2017, I was just a sophomore in high school. And I would spend the weekends up here tearing out all the old 70s things and putting down flooring and painting walls, and it became a big family project, and something that, sweat equity. In addition to that, this learning about the history I'm a historian and love to just be inspired by what happened, and hearing from locals that remember the good old days of how San Bernardino was.
Yeah.
And I've been through almost 4,000 newspaper pages because I wanted to learn the full story, like what I was sharing today, of San Bernardino and the Andresens. And I just kept going back until I realized this was where the Inland Empire started.
Which is amazing. And what I find pretty cool is that, you just didn't just jump into the creative director role. You actually put some blood, you said sweat equity? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
You actually were on your knees digging out carpet, painting walls. Like, you actually were part of the restoration process of this entire building, which makes you even more, in my opinion, more committed and devoted to this building, right? So going on with that, like, you mentioned about, if people want to keep it the old way, it becomes a museum, right? So as a creative director, what's your vision to avoid that museum thing happening?
So to avoid becoming a museum, I also look into California Preservation Society, and I've looked at a lot of architects, and they always say first thing in their presentations, old buildings shouldn't always be museums.
Okay, they should?
Not.
They should not.
So if you want to restore something, it should be inspired by the past, not all, unless you want to do a museum. But as creative director here, looking at the 70s, I know the 70s that was left over. That was definitely not original. And in terms of architecture, we're very fortunate that a lot of original elements were saved, and previous owners didn't remove things, and pretty much left, except the original storefronts, which were removed in 1949, unfortunately. Because if you had real money and they really spared no expense, you got glazed terracotta, and all this is glazed terracotta.
Okay.
So some buildings have concrete or just matte terracotta, but this is glazed terracotta.
Gotcha.
So, and it's actually very good condition.
For people who may not know, like
terracotta.
why that's so important, can you explain why that's so important?
So the decorative elements in buildings are mostly on the facade. That's the exterior walls of a building. And from windows, that's a decorative element, but the building itself always depends on how deep your wallets are.
I like that.
And since this was a monument that they wanted to, even from the earthquake safety, they wanted it to be here forever. And to have glazed terracotta that washes, it could get washed, but the decorative elements like capitals and tops of pillars and columns to be decorative and ornate and very detailed, it's important for a building's reputation, I think, and the owner's reputation. So that's when I say it's a landmark, a true historic landmark, even down to the facade. It's significant. And
it's not a facade.
Huh?
Down to the facade, but it's not a facade.
Um, so in terms of the restoration work here, we wanted to remove the carpet that was covering our hallways and polish that to be more original. This is how it would have looked in 1927 as you
Okay.
walk through. And that gave us, as I looked into other buildings, we're very fortunate in that sense because I'd say most of the historic buildings or historical and historic buildings were gutted because
That
of
makes
earthquake
sense.
safety.
That makes
And
sense.
they lost all of the original things, and some previous owners just let things decay until it was time to remove it.
Terrible. I was wondering, do you feel like you have an obligation now since you've studied the history of this building, you've been on your feet and digged it up? Do you feel like an obligation to like a commitment, like a purpose now for this building to like make it the best you can because you know so much about it and you've done so much for it? Does it feel like that a little bit?
Since day one.
Gotcha.
I was never an real estate person.
Okay.
And I started as many young kids with Legos. And I would do my stop motion, and I was always inspired by Disney. And instead of watching a lot of TV, I would watch architecture documentaries in my elementary school. And I was always inspired by Disneyland and all the little details that people overlook, but it creates that feeling that is unmatched. And first day I was here, I drew a little floor plan I'll have to find someday.
Hey, we gotta find it, please.
I drew a little floor plan of our plaza level and our lower level of what item this felt would work there, and making it an attraction, making it sort of my Disneyland.
Okay.
And it's something that over the years that I've been talking to locals and contractors that would come in, and I would share this plan, share this vision, and they say, wow, that there's really nothing like that here.
Okay.
And
do you want to share a little bit what the Disneyland vision was for us?
Well, I'm still working on it today.
Okay.
The floor plans have evolved. I will admit, because I'm learning about ADA rules and laws of fire safety and
What's ADA?
Americans with Disability Act.
Uh-huh.
So like wheelchairs,
Accessibility.
Accessibility.
Gotcha.
There's all the things that come along with real estate developing.
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn while doing school.
Gotcha.
And
commercial real estate for that matter too.
Commercial real estate that was active in this key property in downtown. Again, in 2017, yes, the building was 70s, but the rest of downtown was mostly abandoned. Our building had 2 paying tenants at that time that we inherited, and they were there and felt that downtown was lacking really, and it was in bankruptcy. And the mayor would come over and ask, "Why are you here?"
Wow.
And me being a sophomore in high school, I'm like, this is a fun project. And I didn't really know the history of San Bernardino then. It was like, where is San Bernardino?
Facts. Because you're not originally from San Bernardino.
Right. I'm not originally from San Bernardino. And coming to the city, seeing a big tall building and say, go have fun, Ryan, figure out what to do with it. It let my imagination run wild, really.
Gotcha.
And
can you scoot in a little bit?
I just imagined what would I want to do here, and then realized that it's a bigger than me.
Okay.
It's a bigger than me project. And people would come in and say, "Oh, did you know this about the building?" And I say, "No." And fortunately, the city has a nice article about the Andresens on their website.
Okay.
And I got to reading it, and just hearing the story and being inspired by what they did all those many years ago and what was left, and it got me interested in the history even more. And looking through all these thousands of newspaper pages, I would see old photos of downtown and what it looked like. And
Completely different.
it was a hub. It was like the LA for the Inland Empire.
Got you. Was it Gateway City you called it?
Gate City.
Gate City.
So even before Route 66 came along, San Bernardino was one of those destination cities.
Wow.
And
The route just made it even more popular.
yeah, it was before even Palm Springs was a thing, it was San Bernardino. And it's so unique here in San Bernardino. Man.
Yeah.
The buildings that were saved from redevelopment and mall expansions and fires and earthquakes, this building stayed resilient and
Love it.
and always was the building to inspire growth in the city.
I love it. You know, as creative director, I got two questions, right? So, how would you explain? I think you talked about it a little bit in the beginning, but can you explain a little bit like more what your goals are and what your duty is as a creative director for the building?
So my goal, simply put, is to make the Enterprise Building the Inland Empire's landmark destination. And big goal.
It's possible.
It's realistic. As creative director, it's my job to find other successful concepts and examples that we could steal like an artist from.
Okay. Can you give an example what you mean?
Like the Rockefeller Center, for example. Grand office building from the same age or same time period. So you think, like even the Empire State Building a little earlier, this big, grand, tall structure on the inside looks exactly like our building. The Rockefeller Center has the same marble as we do, and the layout, and there's this thick book that I managed to get through. It was really entertaining about the epic of the Rockefeller Center.
Okay.
And there's a lot of parallels between the Andresens and Rockefeller, the Jr., John D. Rockefeller Jr., in building the Rockefeller Center.
Okay.
And just by reading that book, I was able to for sure say that we have all the same amenities as the Rockefeller Center. The capacity to do all those things here.
Okay.
And why not have a Rockefeller Center?
In downtown San Bernardino.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. That is so... Obviously, you're in the arts and you care about the arts. So is there any interest in having like artistic stuff done, or is there artistic stuff that's being done in the building? Is there, visions of artistic stuff to be done in the building?
Yeah, just
Like
a couple summers ago, I coordinated our East Street Alley mural project.
Okay.
And that was 6 local artists, and the prompt was for artists to submit something that would inspire growth in San Bernardino,
Cool.
respects San Bernardino's rich history and culture, and is their interpretation of what would really motivate growth and revitalization and something that they could leave for the next generations to inspire too. And I
Cool.
think we had almost 20 artists submit, and then I didn't want to pick them. I wanted the community to get involved.
Okay.
How I like to say it is create more community stakeholders downtown
Okay.
just through picking artwork. So I made a Google form with all the artist mural submissions, and it doesn't matter what age you were. You just filled out your name, picked your favorite 5. That's it. But I made sure to make clear that this is, something that will be left and inspire growth in the city, because this East Street Alley was just a boring old beige alley.
Yeah.
And I would see the bus stop there, and people look out and see this dirty alley and say, that's downtown.
Facts.
And
Smells like piss.
I wanted something vibrant and lively and exciting, and art is one of those things that it doesn't matter who you are, you can appreciate something, and especially if it's San Bernardino, and especially if you were able to select one. So with the submissions, we had, I think, 1,300 people vote.
Wow.
And it's not me, it was the people. And they were able to select their favorite 5. And what I wanted to do too is the local artists would work with local businesses to sponsor that mural. So some of the murals down there, the Enterprise Building sponsored, and the artists volunteered their time
Cool.
over a few months to put up the 6 murals. But some of the murals are sponsored by local businesses and local nonprofits, and you would see on any given day the maybe 2 to 3 of the artists working together.
Okay.
Just creating that friendship, collaboration, but more the friendship. And they would bring friends, and some of the students from the nonprofits would help paint too.
Dope.
And it became the community's East Street Alley murals.
I love it. The reason why I asked about the art, because I know, I think I was here last time when I spoke with Alan, your father, and I think, it's a family business. I think there was a DJ that was going to be performing downstairs, so you guys had there's things that happen in the enterprise I don't think people are aware of. I think even when I was leaving, some people were bringing I think they're called fun top or whatever, those little figurines in a box.
Fun Pop?
Yeah.
Funko Pops?
Yeah, a bunch of people were bringing in that, and I guess they were selling that. And I was like, wow, there's just so much opportunity here that people are not aware of, that they can bring. And, obviously we talked about film earlier. So is there potential for people to have music videos here and maybe have their band perform here? Is that a possibility?
Yeah. So I'll sort of, East Street Alley was a nice segue to what amenities we've brought here over the past 5 years. Our retail space is anchored by our banquet hall, the 320 Premier Hall, which I remember that summer laying flooring. But the nice banquet hall, high ceilings, and we've had likely over 200 events there, and from weddings to collector comic and Funko Pop collector exhibitions.
Wow.
And little shops and boutiques. We had the East Street Alley Art Walk in the lobby and in there too.
Okay.
And
cool.
Concerts. So that's one of the amenities we have. and inside, but we also have the Inland Empire's largest rooftop terrace, rooftop event terrace on our second floor terrace level. You get to see the original facade or interior, or not interior, but west side facade of the building, and the nice little intimate feeling of a sort of San Francisco or New York rooftop, but in downtown San Bernardino. And our hallways, since they're original and covered with marble, I've seen people literally melt, fall to the ground.
Oh, and they saw the marble?
The elevators open, and they like, wow, this is San Bernardino.
They weren't ready for it.
They were not ready for it. But whenever I get those reactions, I smile so much. It's exciting, and just seeing people's reactions about showing some people the old photos of the building.
Okay.
And they say, wow, that was San Bernardino. And then they look at what we've done today, and they say, it still is San Bernardino. And so that's, coming back.
Facts.
The golden days before they were even born are back again, and this restored building brings so many opportunities for special moments. I like to say little Ryan quote.
Go ahead, quote it.
Magical moments change lives.
100%.
And
like
people,
fainting in the hallway.
Right. Fainting in the hallway, people getting married here, sharing.
People get married here?
Yeah, people get married here.
Okay.
So we're able to be the place that they think back to, and they want to share their magical moments with us.
Gotcha.
And that's so wonderful to experience.
Gotcha.
Putting down the flooring that they're doing their wedding dance on.
Gotcha. So like a rooftop wedding.
Oh, they've done rooftop weddings too. Rooftop concerts and clothing events, and there's people being able to experience downtown unlike they have. Like this, going back to the newspapers I've been through, I managed to figure out that we've brought more activity here in the past 5 years than the previous 60 years.
Okay.
And we've had almost 60,000 people to the building in the past 5 years.
That's impressive.
So that's definitely a big team effort, but from the history part, being able to restore and say, this was that person's office, and this is the history, and they really appreciate downtown and appreciate the city more. When you learn the history, you can appreciate it. And for our building, I want to be that center for history.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And you guys are already in the process, right? If you've already done more, excuse me. You guys are already in the process. If you guys have already done more in the past 60 years within 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Because who else has brought, you say 10,000? How many did you say?
Almost 60.
Excuse me, 6 times as much. 60,000 people to San Bernardino. Who else has done that to downtown San Bernardino? No one.
Well, there's the Orange Show.
I was going to say that, to get kids all lit, get them litty,
But other than no property.
Yes.
That of this grandeur and scale.
Yes. Or even anything in downtown San Bernardino, has brought in, not even the movie theaters probably brought in that many people within the past 4 years. That's right across the street, and when you mentioned the rooftop, it made me, you mentioned rooftop like in San Francisco, I believe you said, and stuff like that. It made me immediately think, is there a possibility, because I can just see it right now in my mind, of having like a restaurant on the rooftop of the Enterprise?
Working on it.
Okay, it's already in the works?
So
Okay.
the retail, dining, entertainment, and experiences.
Okay.
Our retail is definitely something that I wanted to get right for the first time.
Okay. Okay.
I wanted to measure an infinite amount of times, but you can't do that.
Facts. Facts.
But as I mentioned before, finding all these other historic buildings and even down to brochures, I've looked at so many hundreds of brochures.
Okay.
Just to pick the best parts that I like from the layout, and the Empire State Building has a sucky brochure.
I didn't know that, but we know the building though. We know the building.
Right,
Yeah.
the building.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't always emphasize the address here. I say the Enterprise Building. 'Cause do you know the address of the Rockefeller Center?
No.
You know the address of the Empire State Building?
Nope.
So it's the building that's important. And,
Yeah. Facts.
bringing the amenities and that landmark destination to downtown, and figuring out how to Google. That's something that I figuring out how to do Google and from a business standpoint, and how to, if you help Google, Google helps you.
Got you. As opposed to like an anime search. As opposed to like searching for anime on Google. That was a little joke. But so it's what's cool is that it's we want to talk about historic buildings. We talk about historic buildings as in we want to see the Empire State Building, the Rockefeller Building, the Enterprise.
Right. So they're on a national list. That's a goal of mine by our 100th anniversary.
Okay.
Become a registered National Historic Landmark.
And when will be the 100th?
In 5 years.
In 5 years?
Less than 5 years. So we just celebrated our 95th anniversary this past May.
Okay.
So 5 more years.
So 27. Wow. Let's do it. I like it.
So our slogan is create history here. I don't know if that's in frame, but create history here. I also do a little bit of philosophy, and my philosophy it's more of a skill, being able to live in all three tenses, past, present, and future tenses simultaneously. Because when you know your history, you don't always make those mistakes.
Yeah, you can learn from them.
You can learn. If you always live in the present, you don't have goals, and you make the same mistakes, right?
Yep.
And if you're always in the future, you're not present.
Yeah, in the moment.
You're not in the moment.
Yes.
So
yeah,
being able to, it's a skill because you can learn it. I had to learn it, and this living in all three and realizing so many little things are so important in the grand scheme of things, in the grand timeline, and you don't want to miss that opportunity.
No.
And by creating history here, it's all three tenses, and it's progressive. We are creating history.
Yeah.
Here.
Right now. I love that. San Bernardino's, been known as a dangerous spot. People are kind of concerned about, coming to San Bernardino because, the history of it being, a violent city, a drug city, a homeless city, right? Especially in the downtown area, right?
Right.
So how do you make and envision the Enterprise as being not only fun for people to come to, but also safe?
So that's why the retail's taken so long. The city's improved quite a bit since 2017.
Yes.
And it's about people. Something, again, as a creative director, I have to do a lot of research, and R&D is a fun thing, but it can be a little stressful and overwhelming. But once you figure out across the board the things that I looked into the best architects of the past 60 or 70 years.
Okay.
Even studying architect.
Okay.
And that era of architecture. And writing down all the key things and figuring out, this is my consensus, it truly does not matter where it is. As long as it is intentionally designed with the human experience in mind, people will come.
Build it and they will come.
Well, if you build it right.
It has to be built correctly.
With the human experience in mind.
Okay.
Because a lot of places you see in the 70s, because of innovations in how skyscrapers and steel buildings were built with a skeleton frame.
Okay.
That way you had more floor space, but it became very ugly, all the buildings. And buildings then, in the 70s and 80s, had a shelf life. So, like this building was built strong to be forever. The buildings that were built in the 70s were built cheaply with profit over people in mind, and with a shelf life. So, a lot of the buildings downtown that were built in the 70s aren't going to last, and they'll get demolished to build a new building. And that's happened quite a bit downtown too. Already. And just being able to have that consensus across the board of all the architects, say, even some that weren't alive to speak to the other ones.
Yeah.
And urban designers and urban planners. I want this building, and how I work every day is to intentionally design it. Be intentional.
Yeah. Not accidental.
Right. Mm-hmm. Everything must work towards the human experience.
Gotcha.
And if even down to operable windows and ceiling height.
Okay.
And how many people you walk past a day, the smells that you the different areas that you smell, the sense of activity affects a human so much. It turns out, and your productivity, and of course, COVID happened, and people stayed at home a lot, and the people questioned, was office dead, right? And being creative director of an office building, I sure hoped not. And I wanted to make sure that we had something that wouldn't die.
Yeah, what a challenge.
It was a challenge, but I looked into our trade area and realized that we're really the only building that can offer this and offer that experience. And from operable windows and the sunlight and your distance away from trees even affects the human. But my goal, as I would research, is the only way, I believe, the only way to get people to come here and have an office is to leave their home, really, is if they felt more productive here than at home.
Gotcha.
And that, took me to how the brain works and how people experience working. And there's really quite nothing like the feeling of accomplishing something.
Definitely.
And if all you do here is create history every day, why wouldn't you stay?
Simple as that.
Right?
Yeah.
Some people don't even want to go home because they feel so productive here. And if not only you can be productive, you can stay here for 18 hours a day. That was my goal, an 18-hour destination.
Okay.
Because you can come in the morning for coffee, and you could stay all the way until, like 12 in the morning with a concert or something. Just being able to spend your day here and not get tired of it, not get bored, and feel productive every day.
Yeah.
That balance. It's about balancing. And it doesn't matter where it is if it's intentionally designed with the human experience
in mind. Yeah, jinx. What's what I've noticed, and I kind of hear it from a lot of people, that it's kind of hard to focus when you're at home. So coming to a space like this makes it more able to focus and get work done. You know what I mean? And what's one of your ways that you're trying to get people to know about the Enterprise Building and to come over here and get some work done?
Our online listing for office spaces where we like to add nice photos and more information on the building that people can appreciate and look at, but we also love to give tours. People are always curious about this building because they'll drive by it and say, "What's here?" And either if they're coming to an event, just walkers by, or they're here because their friend recommended an office. Word of mouth is, and just coincidence is a great way for us, because this building, you can only talk so much about it.
Facts.
We're fortunate enough to not be boring, and to describe the building, you would need a lot of paragraphs.
Yeah.
So when people come in, more often than not, people look at the lobby and say, "Wow, I didn't know this was here." And immediately after that, they somehow, without coordination, envision themselves having an office or an event here, or filming here. We've had film shoots, and even King Vader, a popular YouTuber online, has filmed here, I think, 5 times for his videos.
Cool.
Even his partnership with Netflix and Cobra Kai. So that was a cool shoot. But those little interactions that, millions of people have seen our hallway online now, and just saying, "Wow," and realizing that that's in San Bernardino. Some people definitely want to come and visit just to support. They love what you're doing here. Keep it up. And others try to remember the good old days and want to relive their childhood, or my grandfather had an office here, or
Oh wow.
or not my grandfather.
No, I know. I'm with you.
Like
I'm with you. I'm with you.
People reminiscing off of their family, and is realizing that this building is older than most of the population.
Yeah, facts.
And a lot of stories.
Yeah, man, I got 2 questions, and hopefully I can remember both of them. Do you guys have is there a sign out in front of the building that says Enterprise on it?
Yeah, there's a couple signs along our front entrance.
Gotcha. I think, just an opinion, I think you guys should get a big sign and say Enterprise right across the building so people can clearly see, okay, that's the Enterprise Building. From
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
On the roof, I'm looking into it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Anyway, just because I came across the building on accident. I was walking by and I saw, I think his name's Jesse. I might be saying his name wrong. But he was outside smoking a cigar. And I was just like, as I said, rooftop. And I was like, okay, let me talk to him. And that was the only, otherwise, I didn't even think the building was open. And then I saw him outside smoking. I was like, oh, wow, it's here. And talked to him. And now I'm here having a great conversation with you and talk to your pops too. And it's just like, it was just an idea. I was like, man, it'd be nice to see Enterprise big on the side that people could say, hey, yeah, that's the Enterprise Building. You can see us. We're here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's definitely, signage is something that I do look into, because I don't want it to just be some average marquee, right?
Of course.
I want it to really fit the building, and since the building is covered in terracotta, it makes it hard to put signs on it. And since we're under California places of interest and things. So you can only do so much to the exterior.
What does that mean?
Uh,
California places of interest.
they recognize that the building is of historical importance.
And so, like, doing any changes to it would...
On that, they mostly care about the exterior.
Okay.
And the Mills Act is a great resource under that preservation and of historic buildings that we're fortunate to be involved with.
Okay.
And
You said the Mills?
Mills Act.
Okay. And what did the Mills Act deal with?
It's more for helping with restoration efforts of historic buildings.
Okay, cool.
And
Super cool.
They always care about the outside.
Okay.
And so
Just
that's
like California, only caring about the outside.
so signage is in the works.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah.
Along with our retail, so that way the signage would fit those retailers too.
Gotcha. Yeah, it just came to me because I was like, man, people need to know this building's here, right?
Yeah.
That's what it just came to me, and you've mentioned, the elderly coming and like reminiscing, right? So as creative director, like, how do you approach being able to satisfy people with nostalgia and then bringing in the new young generation?
That was a challenge. As I mentioned before, we changed the name of the building from Andresen Building to Enterprise Building. And initially, that caused a bit of an uproar.
So it was originally called Andresen all the way up until you guys got the building?
Up until, there's been a few name changes, but it always reverted back to the Andresen Building.
Okay.
And we did a very permanent switcheroo on the name, and people got a little upset.
I can imagine.
But
why the name Enterprise?
Well, as I mentioned before, just the place for entrepreneurs, that's what it was. That's what our goal is. And an enterprise is something that anybody could really start. But Andresen, unless you know the history of the city, and for, as I said before, 60 years, it's been pretty dull.
Dead, yeah.
Unless you really cared about the history, which of course those people did, you don't know who the Andresens are. Most of the
Facts.
people I talk with don't know about the history. And it's just that building on the street.
Facts.
So giving it an enterprise brings it into, it represents both the history and the future, the past, present, future thing.
Yeah.
So businesses, and
Gotcha.
entrepreneurs, that's what we wanted to bring here with that name. So, and it's also easier to spell.
I like it.
Andresen it's R-E, so people spell a lot of Anderson and as a typo.
Man, I was already thinking with the A. Yeah.
And
Excuse me.
Satisfying those people, it's not as much as trying to satisfy them as to try to get them to realize that it's not out of spite.
Yeah. Ooh. Which is probably easier said than done, probably.
Well, as I've gone through the history and being such a younger person, many people are like, "Oh, you remind me of my grandson," and things like that.
Okay.
And I
sneak your way in that way.
Well, it's not to sneak in.
Yeah.
It's just I'm able to, and I've like my grandma and great grandma. I've always interacted more with adults.
Okay.
And
Same.
being able to communicate the story, because I'm a storyteller, filmmaker.
Yeah.
In an interesting way to capture both audiences. people that aren't familiar with the history and people that are familiar with the history, they appreciate that I know it and it's being shared and presented to the world.
Gotcha. And what are some of the? I'm sorry, did I cut you off? Yeah, okay. And what are some, going back to like the ways to keep it nostalgic for the old ones and also bring in the younger generations? What are some of the tactics that you try to do, or some of the things you try to do? Instagram can't go wrong with IG, man.
Social media presence. I do have to work on our Facebook, but Instagram's a way that we've been able to communicate with people more, and so many people are on Instagram now.
Gotcha. It's a perfect place for business.
And Google, figuring out how to do the Google again. It's a resource that you can just look up things, and our building was always the cool cat in the corner.
Okay.
It wasn't photographed much, and the intersection is very important. This intersection, and there's postcards of it. But over time, when this building was mostly vacant and the mall opened and the East Street and downtown was in a decline, that was like 30 years ago.
Wow.
And people say, I always looked at this building on my way to the mall, and they never got to go inside. A lot of people think about the mall and think that this was connected to the mall, though it wasn't.
Yeah.
That was the building next door. But being able to experience the nostalgia of the mall was also a draw that I've seen people come in. It's like, ooh, I'm right next to my childhood, right? And it's not really a tactic, it's just location.
Yeah.
And this sharing the history, sharing the story, anyone can appreciate this grand building.
Gotcha. And, what are some of the current projects that you are currently working on, if you can share any with us?
Let me think. Definitely our retail. I'm wanting, as I said before, I've looked at thousands of places. Like you'll see on my Google Maps, my bookmark places. Just the entire world is filled with little blue dots of places that I've looked into.
Of like how they run their business?
Not just how they run their business. There's things that caught my eye, things that were interesting to me.
Okay.
And even if it was like this place had a good review and the inside looks nice. And this is one of the top places that Yelp recommends, or Times magazine says this is the top 5 places to visit in the world. Look into those and see what they have to see what I could bring here. And finally gotten to that point where I could map out something that makes sense and would be that attraction. Something that I am working on is an exhibit.
Okay.
Like a museum exhibit, something curated.
Cool.
And then our enterprise district, that is our new city project.
Okay.
I've been working with city organizations and local groups and even national groups to make, as I share the story, they recognize that this is such an important strip of downtown, and out of the buildings that weren't demolished, the history that is here, just in this strip along East Street, is significant. And I pitched the enterprise district idea. So this will be the first in the world. The
Okay.
first formally named Enterprise District.
Okay.
So yeah, we're working on that now, but our building's a part of that. We're the main cornerstone property for downtown.
Dope. Ryan, thank you so much for being on the podcast, man. Let's say 100 years have passed by, 200 years have passed by. What would you like your empire to have looked like regarding, the Enterprise Building, your film work, your creative stuff, your life? What would you like your empire to have looked like?
Well, how I think of legacy is the Hamilton. They have a nice quote if you're familiar.
With the musical.
The musical. He says, "What is a legacy? It's planting seeds in a garden you never get to see." And I think about that a lot when I aim to impress myself instead of aiming to impress others. Whatever I do, I put the work in to create something significant and worth putting my name on, and knowing that people will experience that and wanting to experience that in their own way, their own unique magical moment, right? And if I'm able to just set the scene for that, and people would have their first date at our building, or a president would come by, or they filmed a major movie here, things like that, my work would be a part of people's lives. And as I said, magical moments change lives, and being a part of their magical moment is so fulfilling to me. And knowing that I did it while impressing myself is extra fulfilling. And being able to leave that legacy of, this is what Ryan did, this is what his family did. Were considered contemporary pioneers.
Okay. The Stanley family?
Yeah.
I like it.
And looking back to the Andresens, I think we're a part of that history now.
Mm-hmm.
And bringing it to this point and setting it up for success in the human experience, and intentionally that landmark destination for the Inland Empire, that's something that this building never was. But bringing this new use, bringing the population, revitalizing downtown, building the first ever enterprise district in the entire world. Whoa.
Yeah. What can you? Number one, great empire story. Can you kind of help explain what the enterprise district is for us?
So the Enterprise District is a set of historic buildings along downtown's East Street. The Harris, the Enterprise, the Central City Annex there, and the Woolworth building. This is the district, along with that parking structure.
Okay.
The district is just that, 4 acres about.
Okay.
And of very storied buildings. The Harris department store is the first department store in the city, or the Inland Empire rather, and developing that would be one of there's 3 successful department store redevelopments in America. Only 3. 2 are in the works, so we'll see.
Okay.
Other than that, this would be like the 6th in all of America department store redevelopment.
Wow.
And not everybody, but the Harris Company's been such a big part of the history of the Inland Empire too. And it's likely more well known than the Andresen story.
Wow.
Just because it was a shopping center. It was people called it a palace. It was so grand.
Interesting.
Like it's looking at the old pictures of downtown. People dressed up to go downtown.
Wow.
And even walking in their 3-piece suits that in the sun of San Bernardino.
Got you.
That was the dress code.
A much different dress code today.
And the Woolworth building on the corner there still has its original architecture, and it's a corner property.
Okay.
So out of all of America, there's likely one and under a handful of original corner buildings for the Woolworth Company.
Wow.
Most people nowadays, I feel old, aren't familiar with the Woolworth Company.
This guy's not even 25 cents old. He should get Come on, man.
I'm just 20. So
That's what I'm saying. Not even 25. You're saying I'm old. The heck? Not even old enough to drink.
So
Go ahead, Rye.
the Woolworth, when you think of like the 99-cent store or Dollar Tree today,
Yeah.
that's where the Woolworth was. It was a cent store. It was a discount store where people could just walk in and not have to buy something. They were encouraged to just be looker-loos and buy small little 5 or 10 cent items if they felt like it.
Oh, wow.
That building so the Harris was 1927 along with our building. Even though it's larger, it cost less than half as much. It was only a $600,000 building.
Okay.
And ours was 1.5.
Facts. Facts. He's flexing over here. He's flexing. Trying to flex on people. I like it.
And there were other buildings along, like the annex that was removed, and other historic buildings along East Street. But as of today, we're the only active building on this side of East Street for quite a bit.
Wow. And that's
Big
all part
project.
of the Enterprise District.
The Enterprise District. So when you think of downtown, many think of the mall. And it's unfortunate that people think the history of San Bernardino started when the mall opened.
The Carousel Mall, yeah.
And that was the 70s.
Yeah.
John Andresen came to town 100 years before that.
Wow. Yeah. And the mall's no longer here.
So when the mall is my hope here, the mall is getting demolished, and the curtain rises on the Enterprise District, since we're right here, where the proscenium, where the stage for downtown. And whatever happens here in this district will represent San Bernardino.
Yeah. Yeah.
And having such a great name, hundreds of mentions of innovation centers, innovation districts, centers for enterprises and buildings and districts, but never, ever in the history of the world, a formal enterprise district.
Cool.
So San Bernardino, downtown San Bernardino, has the first.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, congrats on that. We talked a little bit about, an artifact offline. I'm not sure, but if you wanted to share a little bit of that artifact, we might have some, you wanted to share it, which would probably be in the museum you're trying to create here, right?
So as I look through the thousands of, I'm going to look out of frame to get the artifact. I have to put on gloves. But
see, only a filmmaker would say something like that. Look at a frame. You over here. People are like, what? I'm listening on Apple Music. I don't a lot of frame, boy. You're talking about.
Oh, okay. As I looked at all the old buildings and learning the history of our building and the other great properties downtown that were demolished, I was like, wow. So many people. The moment you tear down a building, it's gone forever.
Facts.
All the history, all the legacy gone unless you saved a brick.
Mm-hmm.
And all these buildings, they didn't save a brick.
Why would they? Yep.
I wanted to get at least one thing from each of those buildings.
Gotcha. We have about 10 minutes.
This isn't from one of the buildings. However, I like to share. This is a original souvenir book from 1887. So when you think about the history of San Bernardino, as I was saying, John Andresen came to town 1871 and really built up the city. And by 1887, we had souvenir books about downtown.
Wow.
And they have a nice aerial
Cool.
of what it looked like then. And the city, the city being developed, and just the amenities that downtown and the city had to offer. It folds out into about I'd say 10-foot line of old photos, but this is a view from the old courthouse, this is the old courthouse here.
Wow. Definitely takes you back looking at the photos for sure.
Yeah. This is San Bernardino's school, old school, that top photo.
Mm.
And then the cat's block, you had Artisan Wells, the spewing water. This was the Stewart Hotel, which was kitty corner to our building, which John Andresen helped build. This is considered one of the finest hotels in the state.
It looks fabulous.
It burned down 1.5 times. But
1.5 times?
yeah.
The other time, the second time it only got halfway burned? Gotcha.
You see more, there's life in San Bernardino.
Are those drawings or pictures?
These are drawings.
Like sketches, right?
Yeah, sketches, artist sketches. These are nature.
Yeah.
More nature. Then here you see the Arrowhead, the Arrowhead Springs Hotel. This was the first Arrowhead Springs Hotel. I believe there was 3.
Wow.
So I have things from all 3 of the Arrowhead Springs hotels.
Nice.
Um,
And so this would be in the museum that you're working on.
yeah.
Awesome.
So this is one of over 300 historical San Bernardino artifacts in our archive.
Nice. Amazing. Wow. Ryan, thank you so much for being on the podcast, man. So much information. So super excited to see what's going to be happening next with the Enterprise. And, I hope I'm invited to the party when the rooftop restaurant stuff happens. Hope I'm invited to the party. I'll show up regardless. I'll just show up. I'll bang, But you're doing great work out here, man. Just keep doing it. For the people who want to, maybe do business with you, maybe want to do an event here, want to support, want to follow, can you please tell everybody how they can contact you, where they can find you, and just let them know?
So yeah, if you Google the Enterprise Building, San Bernardino, will pop up, and our website will take you to our LoopNet listing. So if you want to have an office here, you want to get a tour, that's how you register. Then for events,
Can you spell out the website for them?
Well, LoopNet, it's like
No, spell out the website.
the website.
Yeah, can you spell it out for them?
Well, it's not a website.
It's not the enterprise.com or the enterprisebuilding.com?
We're still working on that.
Gotcha. Excuse me.
Our LoopNet is where I set up as our website, sort of.
Okay.
And then that has the links to our the Sun newspaper that they did an article on for us for our 95th anniversary, and our Instagram's there too. So You can Instagram and search up the Enterprise Building and the 320 Premier Hall, and the links there too will take you to the LoopNet, or call our event coordinator and set you up to book a tour and hopefully get your event at the historic Enterprise Building.
Gotcha. Can you spell out the IG handle?
Yes. So, to spell it out?
Yeah, so that way people can
TheEnterprise Building.
Awesome. And do you have the phone number? Do you know the phone number by chance?
I can quickly look it up real quick.
And just to let you guys know, I'm gonna have all the information, all the links in the description, so that way you guys can just go in there, click it, copy paste, and you can get hooked even to the loop thing he was saying. I think it's called LoopNet or
LoopNet.
Yeah, and get all the information together.
So our event phone number is 1-800-589-8. Oh gosh. All right, we'll start over. 1-800-589-5810. So that's where you call to book your event with our lovely event coordinator, my mother. She'll show you around, give you the grand tour, and if you want to reach out to me, you can email me at rstanly@theenterprisebuilding.com.
Awesome. Guys, Ryan, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Appreciate you. Ladies and gentlemen, wasn't that amazing? So much history, bro. The Andrasians, they were on something. They were on something. They were balling. They were out here with their, top hats.
I forgot to mention. So
go ahead.
John Andrason Jr. Became a city and county supervisor too, and he was responsible for the Rim of the World Bridge to Crestline.
Mm-hmm.
And in honor of that historic moment, they actually named the mountain peak that bridge is on Mount Andrason. So there's a mountain in the San Bernardino mountain range with their name. And another thing I forgot to mention too, in 1927, the building was dedicated, May 14th. And during then too, the city's official elevation marker was moved to this building. So if you Google online San Bernardino elevation, that's the exact elevation of our building.
That's when you know you making some moves. That's when you know you're making some moves, folks. Wow.
So, yeah.
The kid knows what he's talking about. This gentleman, this young man, he knows what he's doing. He's doing great work. Support him. Support the building. Come out, get your business done. Come out to an event. You have an art gallery, you can do it here. You have a business you want to start, you can do it here. It's limitless to what you can do in this building. Just contact them and you can do it. Again, you guys, I want to thank you. This is The Empire Podcast. My name is Antonio Lee Miles, the host. Yes, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate it. We're trying to build everything up. You know what I mean? And so, like I said, it was awesome. And we got more greatness coming for you guys. And until next time, we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
I say it's my duty. Yeah. Is it my will? Yeah. To do what? Yeah. To do is right. I say.
That's it, bro.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. How'd you feel?
Good. Hopefully I wasn't too tired.
Did you feel tired during it?
I was a little tired. But
I can tell it went away though at one point.